Coker. I'm the Associate Director of our hardware programs, and we are going to go through our info session today for our Protofacturing Hardware Accelerator. Super excited to be talking about this one. This is a relatively new program. We've started it last year. This is our second year that we'll be running it, so looking forward to giving you a little more details on what protofacturing is and why we created this program. So we're going to go through a few things today. We're going to start talking about our team and our philosophy. For any of you that have been in our programs before, this will probably sound similar. If you've never heard of our programs, then this will hopefully be new and interesting for you. We're going to go through what the program is, what you should expect with the program, and how it's structured. And then we'll talk a little bit about the facility and expectations that go along with the accelerator. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up talking about some of the different resources that are available to you as participants in any of our accelerators, specifically what you would get from Protofacturing. And then we have two different program tiers that we'll talk about and explain a little bit of like what we're looking for in each tier, how you can make yourself competitive if you are looking for more support or less support, or what makes sense for you. We will have time at the end for any questions. That'll probably be the easiest way to field questions in the webinar format. But you can always drop them into the chat as we go. And if they're relevant and I catch them, we'll jump in as we see them. So starting off, like I said, we're going to talk about our team specifically. So we love hardware here at Rev. We are Cornell affiliated, and we have a mix of different folks that are in our ecosystem, everything from hardware engineers to Cornell faculty, students. We have experienced entrepreneurs, a big community of hardware founders, experienced entrepreneurs who have been through our programs in the past, who have launched companies or who have come to us from other areas and that work with us. And we also have some technical mentors and folks in network that we work with regularly or recommend for manufacturers and so on. So we have a big community of hardware folks, and we're always looking to grow that community as we grow our programs. So I'm going to have Ken jump in and introduce himself. Yes, first is our founding director.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ken Rother. I am the director of Rev. That's why I'm wearing that orange vest there. And I'm also the founding director of our hardware programs, which we're now in our 10th year of delivering. So very quickly, I'm a software guy from a long time ago, but really, really close to hardware. And in the program, I very much focus on sort of the business side of things, so to speak, but I have a pretty strong background in electronics and fundraising, and we'll be working with you on those topics.
Thanks, Ken. So like I said, I'm the associate director. I manage more of the technical side of the program, technical content and engineering support. My background is mechanical engineering and industrial design. I did my master's degree in robotics. I've worked in product development for last 5 years about now. Really enjoy the whole scale up process. So a lot of DFM, design for manufacturing, design for assembly, but I've worked on a lot of mechanical, electrical interfaces, testing and so on. So my happy place is consumer electronics, but I've worked across the board in our programs now. Did we find Lindsay?
Lindsay is in the room with all the participants. So if you want to, I'm trying to get her to join us.
I think I can let her voice over. Lindsay, you want to jump in?
No. Yes?
There we go.
Yes. There you go.
Okay. Hello. I can't show you my face, I guess, but I'm Lindsay. I'm a mechanical engineer, graduated from Cornell. I recently started at Rev for at the beginning of the summer, and I'm super excited for this protofacturing session. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. Maya?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Minter. I'm the program associate working with the Protofacturing Accelerator. In my role, I kind of help with the application process. And then once the program is going, I'm working on the program schedule, kind of doing back-end work. And so if you have questions about those things, about Cornell resources, I also help with scheduling mentoring meetings with our entrepreneurs and residents. This is one of the programs I work on, and I'm really excited to be a part of it this year. So nice to see everyone.
And Maya is our point person for all things related to logistics and applications. So if you have questions, or if you have your application come in and we have questions, you might see emails coming through from Maya. So stay tuned for those if you do end up applying.
Yes, they're coming from the Rev Ithaca email. So make sure you're looking out for those.
All right. And I believe we have Jen with us today.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. I won't be at all these info sessions, but this one I am. So I lead food and ag innovation programs for our organization, and there's a lot of great interaction between the hardware programs and the food tech and the ag tech space. So we have a few different programs that will be interesting for participants. We've got Grow New York, which is a startup competition for early stage high growth potential innovators working anywhere in the food system. That's an investment program. So the top investment that we make each year is $1 million. We've also got a dairy product innovation initiative, and I am useful for participants who are interested in making connections, particularly within the College of Ag and Life Science, CALS. So that's my spiel.
Thanks, Jen. I'm glad you could jump in on this one. Okay, so we wanted to start off introducing everyone because these are kind of the faces that you'll interact with the most. We are the folks that are responsible for fielding your applications and interviewing and so on. So these are the faces to know most commonly through the program if you are admitted. Our philosophy generally is really about pushing development of the business model and the technology in parallel. So that's across all of our hardware programs. This is our kind of middle positioned program. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But across all of our programs in hardware, that's our big push, is to align your business model with your technology and make sure everything lines up as you move forward and advance your companies. We practice the lean startup methodology. We are very focused on involving the customer. If you haven't heard the term customer discovery yet, you would hear it from us basically every session in our programs. We're very active in involving the customer and making sure you're building the right thing for the right person at the right time. We're very proactive in surrounding the entrepreneur with support. So that means working with our engineering team, with business mentorship, with all of the right resources that we can throw at you to help you advance, and really focused on systematically validating your business model, validating your technology, and moving your startup forward into hopefully a scalable company. So that's our intro. We're going to switch now talking a little bit about the program and what is protofacturing. You may have noticed that protofacturing is a combination of two terms you're probably more familiar with, prototyping and manufacturing. And it's really kind of this hot spot in the middle where we find there's a little bit of a dead zone between I've made one, I want to make 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, but I don't know how to get there. Protofacturing is our gateway program to help you move between one and the other. This is roughly what that looks like. So this is our pipeline that we have through our programs over here on the right. You see that we're again pushing that hardware process and business model development in parallel. Our earliest stage program is prototyping. This is where you focus on developing that first one that works, that someone would want or be interested in. And protofacturing is this middle spot where you say, I built one. It's maybe a garage type build, but it's fully functional. It's an integrated prototype. It is something that I see being marketable. I have evidence of product market fit. And now I want to go through and I want to make my first 100, or I want to get prepared to make my first 200, 500, and so on, before you have maybe the thousands of dollars that you would need for a full design validation stage where you need to buy tooling and all of that. So protofacturing is kind of your middle window there to clean things up, get things ready to go. All right. Sorry, looking at questions coming in. It looks like we can field some of those as we go. Program goals are threefold for protofacturing. So again, we're focusing on validating your business model. In our earliest program, we really focus on figuring out your customer segment and your value proposition. And in protofacturing, we expand that to other areas of the business model canvas. So I mentioned here channels and customer relationships, but really moving systematically through and validating the rest of your business model, not just that core, who is my customer and what is the value add for them, but that you can move around the canvas and you can confidently say that you've worked through a variety of different pieces of that model and how you would get to your customer and how you would sell and so on. Then we are looking on the build side, we are looking to move from prototype to probably more of a pilot and a scalable model. So most folks in protofacturing are going to look at what do they need for their first pilot test? How do they get those first pilot scales? Can they do paid pilots during protofacturing? So you're looking to establish prototypes that you can make in multiples so that you can get them out to customers, you can get feedback on those prototypes, and then start preparing the documentation that you would need for scale. So tightening up those early prototypes and starting to think about, do I have a product requirements document? Do I have a product spec? What are the different certifications that need to go with my product that I need to know about? Maybe you're making drawing sets, schematics, and so on. And you're really trying to finalize the design so that you get to a stage where you can freeze the design, which is when you would move forward with manufacturing in larger volumes, larger quantities. The marketing pieces that we focus on here then are a little bit more about finalizing your funding strategy and about doing some different tests to figure out what are the right price points, what can I sell my product for, what are people actually interested in. And so we have some really cool sessions that we've done about web and sales tests to figure out how do you validate like that was the right price point for the value add that I have, and figuring out how you get the funding to actually move your product forward at scale once you know a little bit more about the overall costs for your product. Now, the big question that you might be asking is this protofactoring thing, what is it? Is this program right for me? So how do you know if this is positionally the right time or the right place for you to be right now? And I know we had some questions in there in the chat already. I'm happy to get more specifically into those towards the end. But generally speaking, some things you should have is that you have an initial prototype that is mostly or entirely functional. So to your current knowledge, it does everything that you think it needs to do, or the majority, the most important things that you think it needs to do, and you want to start looking to move it forward. You probably have low volume prototyping methods at this point, are the common ways that you've built this early prototype. So you're 3D printing, you're laser cutting. Maybe you have some low volume manufactured parts. It's possible that you could have some different like urethane cast or silicone cast parts, things that are a little bit more scalable processes, but still not really at volume. But you're kind of in that middle area. You've maybe built one, you maybe built 10, but you haven't built your first 100, 200, 500, and so on yet. So you're really looking to kind of bridge that gap to higher volumes. You have to have some evidence of product market fit. Now that can be a number of different things. There's a lot of ways this can be demonstrated in your applications, but that could be customer discovery. You've done the customer discovery interviews and you confidently feel that people do have this problem. You could tell me what their problem is. You could tell me what they need and how your solution meets that need. Maybe you've done early pilot tests. That's another validation method, is that you've either sold some of these early prototypes or you've done user tests with your customers. You've gotten feedback. People are wondering when they're going to be able to sign up, get on your lists, and so on. Or you could have funding. That's another validation method. If you just launched a Kickstarter and you have successfully fulfilled a Kickstarter, that's good, clear evidence of product market fit. So you might have funding, you might have a funding strategy, or you might have existing funding, but you have some evidence altogether of product market fit, and you have that initial prototype that's basically functional, basically ready to get cleaned up for scale. Now, it's also possible you could be too far along for this program. If you've done your first manufacturing run, so you have tooling or you have something that has been scaled in larger volumes, if you are in the range of 500 or more, you might be on the later end for this program where maybe this isn't quite the right fit. It could be a little bit too early. You also usually don't have a full team of engineers, or you have maybe holes in your engineering team where you have a bunch of software engineers, but you don't have mechanical engineers, and you're looking to like figure out how to move through that process or anything like that. You probably don't have manufacturers queued up where you've got an order, you've got everything worked out, and you're just waiting to press go. That would be also a little bit too far along for this program. These are guidelines. This is not a perfect solution, but wanted to give you a sense of kind of what the positioning is for this program, since it is a little bit of a hybrid in between place. We evaluate everything on a case-by-case basis, but hopefully this helps give some direction. There's a few different tracks of the program that we have, and we like to keep these tracks moving across all of our programs because they help us understand who the right people are for you to connect with. If you're in the ag tech track, you're probably going to have a conversation with Jen at some point, and so on. So this is a way that we look at helping to put you all together into cohorts so that you have people with similar interests, similar problems, similar products to collaborate with and so on. So we have our climate tech track, our ag tech track, med tech, and our classic track. Classic is kind of our catch-all. I hate calling it that, but that's basically what it is. If you have a physical product that doesn't fit into one of these other categories, you can still fit into our programs just in the classic track. Really broad overview. These are broad strokes across these tracks. And I should mention that some people will potentially be able to cross-list across them if that's of interest. There's no real difference in the way that we treat the tracks. I'll just jump back and say that quickly, that there's no difference really in how you're going to experience the program. You would get paired with a mentor, and you might get paired with some specific resources that are tailored to your track, but it's not like they're totally separate programs. They're all in the same program. So I just want to clarify that before we jump in. Some quick overviews. Climate tech track, that's anything that's looking at decarbonization. There's a lot of different things that fit into this. If you are looking to have a product that is more sustainable than alternatives on the market, if you are actively decarbonizing through a specific technology, that's one way. If you're just reducing carbon footprint, if you're swapping from a gasoline engine to an electric motor or whatever that is, there's lots of different ways you can fit into this. So if you think climate tech is the place for you, you can definitely apply to that, and we would evaluate whether or not that makes sense. We have some different things that we would talk about, and we would help with resources here in terms of greenhouse gas accounting, different perspectives on climate tech, how to tell your story for a climate tech company, and then life cycle analysis, sustainability overall. The ag tech track, this is a spot again where this is really Jen's forte, where we look at like, how are we improving any scenario for farmers, for crop production, livestock management, and so on. We have a number of different ag programs. So Jen mentioned a few of them with her intro a few minutes ago. So if you are in the ag tech track, know that we have a lot of different resources here that may or may not be of interest, as well as the Cornell CALS School for connecting with any faculty or research opportunities as well. This is a sponsored track, so we do have different programs that sponsor our different tracks, but this is anything that looks at farming, crop security, anything in the food and ag sector, really. We do have different opportunities for workshops, connecting with entrepreneurs who are in ag tech specifically, and so on. Our MedTech track is new. This is anything that's looking at improving overall human health and well-being. So everything from sleep tech. We have a couple of companies that are in that space now, to therapeutics, diagnostics, and so on. But our MedTech track is new, so we're really excited to have that here for you. This is, again, funded by a specific grant. It's in partnership with Weill Cornell, which is Cornell's med school. And we have different resources, different experts and mentors in the med tech field that have experience with medical devices. And then, like I said, our classic track is kind of our catch-all. So as long as you have a physical product, it doesn't necessarily need to have software. It doesn't necessarily need to have electronics. But as long as you have something that has a physical form, not a food, but a physical product that we can work with, that would fall into our classic track. The catch-all phrase that we use is software wrapped in plastic. So like I said, anything that's got a physical component, that is fair game for the classic track. But you don't have to have electronics. You don't have to have software. There's plenty of devices that have come through that are just plastic. There is no software wrapped up inside. So that's fine as well. This can be a number of different categories. We've had everything from femtech to wearables to social good products and so on. If you think this is a good fit, you're not sure that you fit into one of the specific tracks, apply to the classic track. If you apply to the classic track and we think you're a fit somewhere else, we can talk about moving you somewhere else. So that's also appropriate. So like I said, submit the application for the track that you think is most appropriate. Regardless of what track you're in, our content is pretty universal. If we do have something specific that's still of interest, say we had a sustainability session, or we brought in a guest speaker or had an opportunity to share, you're still going to see that. So you still are available to jump in on some of that if needed. So some things to note logistically about this program, just again, as we move through this. So biggest thing is that our sessions are on Monday afternoon on Eastern time. I'm not sure the specific time window we have picked out off the top of my head right now, but you should plan on Monday afternoon, sometime in the 1 to 5 range. There's going to be 2 sessions. It'll be the same time every week, but 2 hours of content. Almost always going to be 1 business-focused workshop and 1 technical workshop. And the program runs from August 19th through December 9th. So those are your dates, your windows. You'll notice they roughly line up with the academic semester. We can talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Everything is on Zoom. Everything is virtual. So there's no requirement for any part of this program to be in person, as long as you can be available for those sessions, noting that they are on Eastern time. Some resources that you would have with the program, regardless of what tier you're in. We're going to talk about tiers in just a few minutes, but you would have those virtual sessions Monday afternoon. So every week for about 14 weeks total, you would have those sessions, that content, workshops, resources that come from those sessions are yours to have, yours to share. You have a monthly meeting with a mentor. So this is an experienced entrepreneur. If you are in one of those tracks, we try to pair you up with someone that has experience in that sector so that you're getting feedback and input specific to like the health and wellness, or you're getting specific feedback in ag, someone who has experience in that field. So we do try to pair you up with mentors that have the right background for the track that you're in. And those are hourly meetings. And then we talk about now our 2 different tiers. So with this program, we have an engineering support tier, and then we have a main tier where you have different levels of technical support. So that's the big difference here, is that you can have full engineering support from our team, depending on what you're admitted into, or you can have just the opportunity to consult with us if you're in the main program tier. So separated those out a little bit, want to outline a little bit more what that looks like in detail. So in both cases, what you'll notice is everything that's in the main content tier is in the engineering support tier. So in both cases, you get access to all main content 2 hours a week, Monday afternoons. Any documentation, templates, and assessments that come from that, those are yours to take away, yours to use, yours to modify, yours to not use if they don't feel appropriate. So all of those resources from those sessions are yours. We have some discounted software plans that we would share with you that you'd have access to, a couple months free, discounted links, some specific links that we have through our partners, and so on. You always have those mentor meetings. Now, where it starts to divide out is when we talk about the engineering support. So Lindsay and I lead our engineering team. So you would work primarily with myself or Lindsay in either case, potentially both of us. And then we have a engineering team around us of electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, designers, and so on. If you are in the main content tier, you can do some check-ins, reviews, smaller type feedback opportunities. You just wanted to bounce some ideas around. You wanted to have a drawing set reviewed or redlined or anything like that. I'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like, but you can have a monthly consultation type check-in. That's something that we can assess on a need to use basis. If you need that monthly meeting, you can use it. If you don't need that engineering support, you don't have to. It's not required by any means. If you are in the engineering support tier, however, we are expecting to have weekly meetings with you. Those are 30 to 45 minutes. And we're basically going to be providing as much engineering support as we're able to. We estimate it's usually about 10 to 20 hours a week, depending on how much feedback we're getting from you and how much work we have at any given time. If you're giving us a lot of work and we have a lot of time and we're getting all the documentation we need from you, we will put in closer to 20 hours a week if we have the resources for it. If we are waiting on documentation for you, you might not get a full 10 to 20 hours a week. We might need documentation to move forward, but you can expect that you could use us for mechanical support, electrical support, anything that we are capable of. I tend to say that we will take on, and we outline that in those weekly meetings when we check in to say what's going well, what's not going well, what can we help with, what do you need? If you're in the engineering support tier, you have basically remote access to the Rev shop, or if you are in person in Ithaca, you have full access to Rev. So if you are in Ithaca, you are working with us closely, you are welcome to come in and use the shop. You are welcome to come in and use any of the machines that you've been trained on appropriately. But if you are not located in Ithaca and you are in the engineering support tier, you would still have access to our team, and we would basically do any printing, electronics, prototyping, testing, so on. And if we needed to ship something out to you, we would ship something out and back as we have resources available. Main expectations look different then accordingly, because one's getting a lot more support and one is a little bit more of resources that are available to you. So this main content tier, our expectation is that we have one main point of contact specifically for your mentor. It's really important that someone who's in a leadership position in your company is available and is consistently available for that mentor to meet with and give feedback, and we don't end up playing telephone at any point. And you come to the content sessions. Those are the main requirements for that main content tier. So you get opportunities to be engaged with the cohort, opportunities to be engaged with the content, to be engaged with your mentor. And all we ask is that you have one person who's consistently engaged. If you need to swap out content sessions here and there with a co-founder or another employee of the company, that's okay. But we really want that consistency for your mentor specifically. In the engineering support tier, this looks a little bit similar, but slightly more involved. So one main point of contact, both for your mentor and for the engineering support team. It's really hard for us as a technical team to be bouncing back and forth, different voices, different opinions. So we really want one main person to be involved there as much as possible. Or two main people are involved consistently, and then it's okay if we do have a swap out here and there, but we want that consistency whenever it's available to us. You should be attending content sessions, same thing. The biggest difference here is that if you are in the engineering support tier, our expectation is that you're going to be providing us with documentation. If I have a request for a document, for a part, for information, you're trying to field that for me as quickly as you can, because that's a bottleneck in how we move forward. So if the timeline, for instance, doesn't map on, if something is going to take longer than expected, we're communicating openly, freely as a design team, as an engineering team with you, and you're providing the information that we need to the extent you're able to as we need it. So some things to think about if you're interested in the engineering support tier specifically. How are we evaluating applications? How are we figuring out if the engineering support tier is right? How are we figuring out who gets into the engineering support tier? One of the biggest things is, what existing engineering support do you have? If you have a full engineering team, it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to work with us. And then we've got a lot of voices going back and forth. So if you have like one engineer, maybe two engineers, or just a couple of folks here and there, and you can clearly outline for us in your application like what you need, that's very helpful for us to understand what would we be doing to support you if you were to join the support tier. Next thing we're looking at is the availability and consistency of the core team and how well we think we'd be able to work with you. If we see that you're going to be proactive in getting us documentation and we get the sense that you're very easy to work with, you're available, you're willing to work on this, that's very helpful for us. And that's a big green flag to say, like, yes, this would be a great team that we want to work with. We don't want to be taking someone into the support tier where we're going to ask for a product specification and then we spend 3 weeks waiting for that. That holds everybody up and means that somebody else's spot got taken up. So really looking for that availability and consistency in your core team. And I have two different categories here that I thought were kind of fun, but product shop fit. So we have specific things in our shop. We have specific equipment in terms of prototyping equipment, smaller machines usually, but we want to make sure that the product and the prototype you're working on makes sense for our shop. We don't have welding. If you're looking for welding, we can help you outsource, but we might not be the people to actually work on developing it because we can't easily prototype and test that. And then nextly, looking at product team fit. So our team has specific expertise. We are familiar with our expertise. We are looking for products where we think we can benefit you the most. We don't want to be wasting your time by any means. If you need a professional like automotive engineer, we are not that. We are going to hopefully help you connect with the right people. So we work with a variety of different products, mechanical, electrical, design focused, like I mentioned, but we do have limits on our expertise as well. And then the next thing is the funding availability and timeline. If you just came into a large pile of funding and you're looking to move product forward in the next 6 weeks, we are probably not going to be able to build the whole product in 6 weeks. Most engineering firms aren't going to be able to build a product in 6 weeks. So we want to get a sense that the timeline that you have is reasonable and the funding that you have currently is such that you can move the product forward with that timeline. So we're looking to make sure those two pieces align. Quick example candidate, what I have here on the right. This would be one type one opportunity for someone to join the engineering support tier. I thought this was a really strong example. You have a 2-person team, both of you are full-time. Great, we've got availability and consistency of the core team. So founders have software and business backgrounds. That's a great matchup for our engineering team. We focus more on mechanical, electrical design, and we are not software developers by any means. So that's a good fit overall across the team. So smaller product, it fits in a 12 by 24 inch frame. Great, that fits with basically all of the equipment in our shop, stuff that we can build pretty easily across different materials and so on. And you have a little bit of funding available for the next 4 months. So you've got some runway, some things that we can work with for prototyping and moving your prototype forward. So this is just one example. This is not the only example, but wanted to give you a sense of what a strong application might look like for the engineering tier. Not going to run through all of this, but just wanted to give you some ideas of what the different engineering support might look like in practice. If you're in the main content here, you would maybe send some documentation. Maybe it's a drawing set and you say, I really would like some feedback on this before I send it to a manufacturer, or my manufacturer said they can't hit this tolerance. Can we maybe workshop a little bit around what we could do here? You'll send some notes along with that documentation. And again, tell me what you're looking for, like I just mentioned. I would go through, or Lindsay would go through, or we both go through, compile our own notes. We send them in advance of a meeting, and then we have a 30-minute meeting to run through some changes that we see, some opportunities that we see, or some suggestions we might have. You can take it or leave it, but that's our feedback. And then you've got a little bit of feedback on what questions you had or working with a problem that you had come up. In the engineering support tier, that looks a little bit different. Like I said, you have those weekly meetings. We set goals on a bi-weekly or a monthly basis. So we'd have weekly check-ins, but we're setting goals for a bi-weekly or a monthly period, depending on how big the project is. Your job is to provide any documentation that we need. So if we were looking to quote with someone and we needed to get an NDA in place, that's your job to sort it out. And then we would go through the quoting system, or we'd help you go through the quoting system once you have that in place. We will help ship prototypes back and forth. If we develop 10 prototypes for user tests, we would develop them, ship them out to you. Or if you're in person, of course, you could come pick them up. But if you're remote, we'd send them out to you so that you can do any user tests with them. And then we can really span a variety of different tasks. Like I mentioned, everything that I like to say we can do, we will do. If we can't do it, we'll tell you. We'll hopefully try to connect you with the right people. But CAD modeling, prototyping, drawing sets, schematic development, electromechanical testing, checking reliability, things like that, PCB development. We've done a little bit of everything. I don't have rendering and things on here, but we've done basically whatever we can do. We try and jump in and fill the holes. For those of you that are familiar with your shop, this should look very familiar. I know a number of you who are in our program now have seen the facility before, but we have 2 different laser cutters, a handful of different desktop CNCs, so smaller work areas, but pretty solid 3-axis, 4-axis, 5-axis CNCs. We have a water jet, full electronics bench. We have a PCB printer and a pick-and-place assembly machine. Assembly space, that's mostly for us to work in since it's a virtual program. And like I said, we have a variety of different technical support team members here. So applications are open. The deadline for admission is August 2nd. One of the things that I didn't talk about, like I said, we're on the semester schedule. If you are in the main content here, you may have the opportunity to work with an MEng student, a master's student at Cornell. That is because we're on the semester schedule. There are some things we can do there. There's no guarantee that you would work with a master's student. That's why it's not included in this presentation, because it's not a promise, but it's a potential opportunity. Part of why we have the timeline of the program where we do. But deadline for admission is August 2nd. So if you are interested in the program, encourage you to apply. If we have questions about your application, we would follow up directly, see if something's a fit. And if it seems like everything is in line, we would move you forward to an interview. All right, that is all I have. It looks like there are a couple of questions floating around here. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay, looks like we've fielded a handful of questions already. Are there any other questions? Okay, one of my favorite questions, cost or equity from the program. So there is no cost for the program. It is completely free. We don't take any equity. Everything that you have is yours. So if you have concerns about that, the only thing is that you would be working with our engineering team if you're in that engineering support tier. But we don't take any equity. We don't want any investment in your IP. We will not take anything. That is all yours. We are just here to help.
Hopefully you'll remember us when you hit it out of the park.
Examples of tech projects that we have worked on prior. Okay. So what are some good examples? We've had everything, kind of a little bit of everything. We had ed tech stuff that's moved through the program, smaller consumer type products. We've had, what did we have last year? We've had some different power strips and climate tech and looking at reducing phantom loads. That was a pretty cool project. That was from a year or two ago now. Ken, what else have we moved through?
Sorry, I was typing an answer to a question. What other program, whatever things that we had?
Things that we've moved through previously.
Oh gosh.
We've got a little bit of everything right now. We've got medical devices in our current programs. And I should mention that anyone that is in our current programs or has been in our current programs, your product is definitely eligible because you are currently in our programs. So if you have any concerns about that, there's no difference in any point in the pipeline. If you got into prototyping or you were in manufacturing, all of our programs have the same criteria for acceptance in terms of like what a hardware product is. Okay. Is there a semester program for those who seek to make a functioning prototype? So if you haven't yet made a functioning prototype, there isn't one in this upcoming semester. We have a program that runs over the summer, but we don't have a specific program for earlier stage that runs in the fall. So if you don't have a functioning prototype yet, protofacturing is probably not the right place for you right now.
If you're a Cornell student, there are a couple of courses, including one of mine, that runs in January that might be useful. So feel free to reach out.
Great. And then scopes of engineering projects we've worked on. So in this program specifically, we've done a lot with preparing for pilots, going through quoting processes and getting ready for design for manufacturing. So we've taken existing like proof of concept prototypes. We look at reworking them so that they're more scalable and will help prototype, iterate, hopefully start doing some quoting with manufacturers to get prices back and forth and actually help you prepare then for manufacturing, knowing what your costs are moving forward. But that's really what we work on here. And it really depends on the company, what those projects actually look like. We've worked on scaled down versions of bigger projects so that you can get a representative model. We've done a number of different things. So if you have questions about that, we could talk more in the interview process. Shipping to and from Europe. That's something that we would talk about. We certainly wouldn't do it as often because of the higher costs. We have worked with international companies and we can handle some international fees. If you have a bigger product, then yes, shipping is something we'd have to talk about because we'd have limited resources in order to ship forward and back. But we could definitely talk about that. We would just need to figure out what makes sense and how frequently we can send builds back and forth if we are doing builds in-house. Does the program help identify potential contract manufacturers? Yes. Straightforward answer there. If you are trying to figure out who the right person is or who the right company is to work with, we are happy to help you quote. We are happy to help point you to people that we've worked with successfully in the past or that we'd recommend. So if you are trying to figure out who the right injection molder is, who the right sheet metal facility is, we help with that as much as we can. What kind of work will your shop handle during the program? Like I said, it's on a case-by-case basis for the type of work that we do in the shop. So that's really something that we have to go back and forth on based on the product, based on what makes sense and based on our capabilities. But we've handled a little bit of everything that fits into our equipment. So if it's in a 12 by 24 inch size, we can help prototype in sheet metal. We can do 3D prints. We can do assembly. We can do electronics and so on. All right, looks like we've got people working on all the other questions. Are there any other questions we can answer now?